deals occur? Usually do the guys come to you and say, hey, I've got this opportunity, what
Yeah.
do you think? Or is
Yeah.
that just depending on the guy, or have you ever been sidelined with something like that?
I've never had anybody leave in the middle of the night, thank God, but I know that it has happened. And again, yeah, the player, the guys are respectful. I mean, and I think it just depends on the circumstances for the most part. But they, they want to tell you face to face. And so, but it's never a great feeling. We work hard all summer long to put together, a product and a team and things like that. It's disappointing at times, when some of that stuff materializes, just because the work that you've put in and the hours that you've put in to try to get everybody to that point. But at the same time, too, I also understand it. I mean, I always try to look at the decisions people make based on, like, what would I do or what would I want my son to do. And if anybody has an opportunity to advance themselves in the game and it makes sense, then I fully understand that. But if it's a lateral move, then I really think that you have an obligation to fulfill and that commitment. But if there's an advantage to it and it's going to help you somehow in your life, whether it's financial or however, I wouldn't ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't do myself.
I was wondering, we always think of the summer as being the off season.
Yeah.
How much of an off season do you have? And when you're looking for players, how do you go about finding them?
Well, it's an interesting network, and it's really at times, you're kind of taking blind leaps of faith. Again, there's a lot of players that you do know about, whether you've coached against them or you've coached them in the past. But then a lot of times you're at the mercy of player representation or player agents that you trust and have quality players and that you've experienced their opinions before. And then you also look at, like, their biography and what their resume brings and what have they accomplished in the past. And so you try to build your team from that standpoint. And, to tell you how busy it is, I've been cautioned several times for having over $350 or $400 phone bills. So that just that just goes to show you that it's the off season, but it's at this level, there isn't an off season. It's a change of responsibility. You become a recruiter and you become a general manager more than you are your actual coaching. And some coaches don't like that. I always like it because I view it as a challenge. I like to try to find ways to be creative to get players to want to sign for us and to be able to out recruit somebody else or things like that. So I think that that's how I choose to look at it. So I don't necessarily not enjoy that part or that process, but I know some guys don't like it at all.
How much do you use, or how much information do you get, like, out of the coaching brethren in the pool and other organizations and things like that?
Well, I think that we try to rely on that as much as possible because there's no better perspective than to have some coach that had to stand there and push this guy out the gate and what was his experiences with a lot of these players. And so I think that that's where you get your most credible opinions from. But there's also a lot of guys that will lie to you. So, it just, again, it really just depends on relationships. It really does. And, there's a lot of times, too, like, there's a lot of players that have spent 3 or 4 years in the East Coast Hockey League, and you can also get a reference based off of those guys. They've all maybe they played college hockey together or things like that. These players that have played in this league now for 3 or 4 years, they know what it's going to take to be successful. They know what kind of player is going to be okay. And you can also rely on players as well as sort of a reference for your recruiting.
You ever have players come and want to play for you?
Fortunately, yes. I mean, and that's through building relationships. And there's a lot of players that have played for me that I will continually press and that could always play for me too, and I let them know that. And that's, you build those relationships. Kevin Harvey's a prime example. Kevin Harvey could play on my team any day, anytime. I just know exactly what he's all about, and he leaves everything that he has on the ice, but he also, invests in his hockey team. He cares about his guys. And so just as an example, yeah. And that's what happens too at this level, especially if we can find ways to help these guys attain what they want to, and we're a little bit of a part of that or whatever, they appreciate it so much. One of the biggest differences I found from coming from the Central Hockey League to the East Coast Hockey League was just the amount of time players wanted to spend one-on-one with you after practice and on the ice. And then after every one of those little sessions, whether it was for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, there was a thank you at the end of that, and they appreciate that, and they still do, and it's interesting. We'll have guys, our practices will end at 11:30, and guys will stay out till 12:30 individually, and that was never a part of a program, and especially at the Central Hockey League, that I really noticed a big difference at the East Coast Hockey League level, and I think a lot of that has to do with the development and the kind of player that's in the league.
Somebody like Miles Bell, how do you wind up with a player like that?
Well, they obviously didn't have an affiliate at the East Coast Hockey League level, and he's a very talented player. He has a lot to learn as a professional and a step to make. But he has some unique attributes that you just can't teach. And Miles Bell will be able to go as far as he wants in this game, but it's up to him. He can control what he'd like to do. And again, it's fun to have players like that. It's fun to have players like that. You have to live with them through some growing pains, though. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, too, it's fun to have players like that on your team, and it's fun to have them in part of your organization and see them start to mature. And especially, I noticed last year I had maybe the youngest team that I'd ever coached, and it was really frustrating, and I'd never had that type of a group before. And then to see the difference in these players in January and February, I was astounded. I was amazed at how much they grew from October to January, and it'll be interesting to watch some of these guys that we have here too.
All right, does anyone outside of this table have any questions? Anyone? All right.
We told you in the very beginning that we would be the ones.
Hey, that's all right. I'm just making sure that someone else has the opportunity if they want. No one else raised their hand, so I'm just
In the back. Sean.
All right, yeah.
Being a development league like this, the ECHL uses a one referee system.
Yeah.
Would you like to see them go to the two referee system?
Well, I think that the more that we can parallel the American Hockey League and the National Hockey League, I think that just lends way more credibility to what we're trying to do. I think there's two things that I would like to see happen in the East Coast Hockey League. I'd like to see the two-man officiating system, but I'd also like to see us be able to dress 20 players for a game. And I think that we're beyond whatever the reasoning behind the rules were. We have players on payroll. We have players that I have to tell aren't going to play on a nightly basis. Why not let us utilize those? I think that it'll cut down on injuries. I think that it'll be a better product, and I think that it also puts us on par with how the National Hockey League and the American Hockey League operate. That to me would be the two things that I would love to see our league make strides for. That I think I just don't see how that could really encumber things moving forward. I do know though at this level it's difficult to get quality officiating because once you've given yourself a 3 to 5 year window at this level as an official, if you're not seeing signs that you're going to progress, you're not making enough money to survive and you're usually moving on. So it's really difficult for officials to hang in there for a long term. And so then the pool of officials is difficult. So that would be maybe one obstacle from it. But I would love to see us do it because I just think that it, again, brings the game at our level to the National Hockey League and American Hockey League level.
All right, great questions. I know you've got some more. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure that everyone else got the opportunity.
What is the reason for only dressing 18?
To be honest with you, I think in its inception, it was to eliminate the designated enforcer and really make it hard for teams to designate a player in that role, and I think that that was something that was done in the early stages. I also think that it was also done to limit your salary cap as well, and to to save 2 salaries. But the way that our rosters are structured now, and the way that we can structure the active roster and the reserve roster, I don't necessarily see where it can be anything but a positive. And, I think Jim, being on the management side of things, can maybe even reiterate, his feelings on maybe why we haven't even progressed to that point.
I think you gave the 2 answers, and there are the 2 answers going back to the start of the league, which I was around for. That it was to eliminate the designated tough guy. And now in this day and age, if you look at the NHL and you look at the American League, obviously even the more physical players have to be able to skate. And so, the guys that Dwight recruits, we're going to have some tough guys out there, but they also have to be able to play. And it is money related, because we have a designated salary cap, and it's just to try to keep the costs under control. Because a lot of these costs are hard to keep under control. Travel goes up every year. Some of your medical costs go up every year. So that's one way the league has felt they can keep costs under control.
You mentioned about some of the guys becoming professional. Do you think some of the younger players kind of underestimate what it takes to be a professional?
Oh, there's no doubt. I know that I know that there's a lot of surprised looks and a lot of surprised faces, after the first week of the regular season here, and it's tough, and it's tough. Again, when you're 19, 20, 21 years old, and all of a sudden you're playing against 26, 27-year-olds on a regular basis. I don't think that gets enough respect coming in. And again, I think it varies as well in the person. I mean, there are players that understand that, and but there's definitely an adjustment period that catches a lot of these players off guard. And I think the other thing that's an adjustment is that when you have people like Rick Wamsley, or you have people from the National Hockey League that really haven't spent a lot of time with the East Coast Hockey League and at this level, are surprised as well, at just what it really takes to be successful. And so I think that that's all really positive. And again, I think that the more that there's affiliations, and I think that there's more a true development ladder, then the league will again have that same respect top to bottom. But there's no doubt an adjustment, and there's no doubt a misconception of just that this is just the East Coast League and it's pretty easy. It's a difficult league, and it's a difficult league for a lot of different reasons. You're forced to do a lot of things that are hard on your body, and the fact even we can only play with 3 lines. I mean, that's a difficult challenge for players that are used to a 4-line system. You have to be in shape and you have to be ready to go. So when you play 3 games in 3 nights, you play Friday night in Evansville and get in a bus at 7 o'clock in the morning in Toledo and have to play that night again. You have to learn how you're going to function and be productive in that type of an environment.
Anybody else? All right, we will have Coach draw for one of these lovely Coors Light prize packs.
And you also get a free burrito in it too.
Ooh.
Free burrito.
Odds are up tonight. 3-6-2.
3-6-2.
It's on the floor. All right. It's a free burrito too in there.
Yeah, take the burrito.
Yeah, I keep it. All right, thank you so much, Coach.
Thanks,
we
you
had
guys.
some great
Appreciate
questions
it.
there. And we will be back with more Iceman Live presented by Coors Light at Depot Brady's.